The rain had already soaked him to the bone when the knock came, heavy and desperate, echoing through the quiet hallway like a warning he didn't have time to think about. A single father, exhausted from a double shift and the weight of raising a child alone, stood frozen for 1 second before opening the door. And in that moment, his ordinary life began to crack open in ways he could never have imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when we open our doors to strangers, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. She stood there in the rain, hair plastered to her face, hands trembling, clothes clinging to her as if the storm itself refused to let her go. She looked strong and fragile at the same time, the kind of person who had learned to stand upright even when the world kept pushing her down. He didn't know her name. He didn't ask questions. All he saw was someone who needed shelter, and a part of him, bruised by loss but not broken, refused to turn her away. He let her in for one night, telling himself it was just until the rain stopped, just until morning came. He had no idea that this small decision would ripple through every corner of his future. Life hadn't been kind to him. Since his wife's death, his days had blurred into routines of packed lunches, unpaid bills, and silent nights after his daughter fell asleep. He carried his grief quietly, afraid that if he stopped moving, it would swallow him whole. Opening the door that night felt like breaking his own rules, like inviting chaos into a life already hanging by a thread. Yet as she sat wrapped in a blanket, staring into nothing for a moment before steadying herself, he sensed that she, too, was running from something heavier than the rain. They spent the night under the same roof but in different worlds. He slept lightly, listening for sounds, torn between fear and responsibility. She stayed awake, haunted by memories she couldn't outrun. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a fragile calm. She thanked him with eyes full of something unspoken and walked back into the day, leaving him with a strange emptiness he couldn't explain. He told himself it was over, that kindness didn't always need a reason or a continuation. The next day, life pushed him forward again. At work, a colleague insisted he try online dating, gently teasing him for hiding from the possibility of happiness. Against his better judgment, he agreed to one blind date, not because he felt ready, but because he was tired of feeling nothing at all. As he prepared to meet her, nerves twisted in his chest, the weight of expectation pressing down harder than he'd anticipated. When he arrived at the cafe, the world seemed to tilt. Sitting at the table was the woman from the storm, clean, composed, and unmistakably the same person who had stood drenched at his door. For a moment, disbelief froze him in place. Fate felt cruel and kind at the same time. She looked just as startled, her carefully built walls cracking under the shock of recognition. Neither of them had known. Neither of them had planned this collision of lives. As the afternoon unfolded, layers slowly peeled away. He learned that she wasn't running from the rain that night, but from a life that had fallen apart, betrayal, career loss, and a loneliness that had driven her onto roads she never thought she'd walk alone. She learned about his daughter, his grief, and the quiet heroism of a man who kept showing up even when his heart was tired. Their shared silence carried more meaning than words ever could. Pain recognized pain, and something gentle began to grow in its place. Still, fear lingered. He struggled with guilt, wondering if opening his heart meant betraying the love he'd lost. She battled shame, convinced her broken past made her unworthy of something real. Both were terrified of hope because hope had hurt them before. Yet life, in its quiet persistence, kept pushing them together, shared moments, accidental smiles, a sense of being seen without explanation. Change didn't come all at once. It came in small, fragile steps. He began to laugh again, surprising himself when joy slipped through the cracks of his grief. She began to believe that her lowest night didn't define her entire story. His daughter, innocent and observant, noticed the warmth before either of them dared to name it. The house that once echoed with silence slowly filled with light. But love is never simple. Old wounds resurfaced. Trust wavered. There were moments when walking away felt safer than staying. What carried them through was not grand promises but consistency, showing up, listening, choosing kindness again and again. They learned that love didn't erase pain, it taught them how to carry it together. On the anniversary of that stormy night, he stood at the same door, rain tapping softly against the glass. This time, the memory didn't ache. It reminded him of how close he'd come to shutting out a miracle. One night of compassion had rewritten two broken lives, proving that timing doesn't need permission to be perfect. Before this story ends, take a moment and comment below. Do you believe that one small act of kindness can change a lifetime? If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing can come from the most unexpected moments, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and let us know in the comments. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and reaching the people who need them most. Because sometimes, the door we open for just one night becomes the doorway to an entirely new